Today's episode of The Bluff is sponsored by SITREP. SITREP is an Artorias open source intelligent app that provides the latest updates for over 180 countries and over 500 topics, allowing you to stay ahead and informed. Now available on Apple and Google. Thank you, SITREP, for sponsoring this episode. Welcome, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Up Front, an Artorias podcast. I'm Stefano, the Chief Intelligence Officer of Artorias.
And I'm Christian, the CEO of Artorias.
And I'm Shane Curtis, the Chief Technology Officer for Artorias.
And in this episode, we want to give all our listeners a background of what Artorias is as a company, what we do, and how we are revolutionizing intelligence collection and analysis, leveraging our AI and LLM models for everybody here. But before we go there, I think it's a very important piece of how Artorias first came to be. And it's a very interesting story of two intelligence professionals, Christian and myself, meeting up for an OSINT gathering with friends within the OSINT community on a train ride to New York City, Manhattan specifically. And in this train ride, Christian and I were simply talking about how archaic a lot of the companies that are in existence are not providing intelligence, alerts, analysis, and assessments. And either they're lacking information or it's just a fire hose of intelligence that makes everybody hard to really understand what's going on and how to make informed decisions. This train ride really, in May of 2024, is how Artorias was built. Simply two intelligence professionals understanding there's a gap. And from there, Artorias was built. First by Christian and our Chief Operation Officer, Drake, and then with myself, Stefano, the Chief Intelligence Officer, and Shane, the Chief Technology Officer. And we truly believe that to make a very successful company, we relied both on the human element and the technology element. So before we go into those aspects, here's who we are and how we decided to form Artorias. I'm Stefano Rittendale, the Chief Intelligence Officer of Artorias, and my background is in military intelligence. I first started after graduating from the Merchant Marine Academy in 2013. I commissioned as an armor officer in the Army before weirdly transitioning over to military intelligence, being placed in a Battalion S2 as my last duty position in active duty, and then transitioning to the reserves as a Brigade S2 and the Brigade Operations Officers, and as well as a contractor working under a G2 within the Air and Missile Defense Command in the Army. I have a lot of experience in military intelligence, and during that time, I also decided to create my own open source intelligence account on X, formerly known as Twitter, called All Source News. And I think a lot of you might know me more from that role I've done in the beginning, where I cover Mexican cartels and organized crime in Latin America. When Christian called me about our idea now becoming a reality, I was sold immediately that I think this was a way that Artorias can revolutionize intelligence and not only data collection and analysis, but really give to everybody here the so what. I saw that as a military intelligence officer, that I can give intel, but if I can't give you the reason why it's important, might as well not have a job. And I think Artorias excels at giving everybody here the so what. Shane, please give us your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. So my background is somewhat similar to Stefano's. We actually met each other at Fort Bliss back when I was active duty as well. I was of course on the enlisted side, however, and I was a all-source intelligence analyst with 35 Fox. I was at both the strategic and also tactical levels. My initial work was at the brigade level and battalion level for First Armored Division Combat Aviation Brigade. When I was there, I did lots of work with DISCA DSRF, which is the Title 10 response force for disasters within the United States. And then transitioning from there, I went to Fort Bragg. When I was at Fort Bragg, I did FMV PED for 3 years, as well as was the Fusion NCOIC for the HCI evacuations for 82nd. After that, I ended up finding myself at the Intelligence Electronic Warfare Test Directorate, IWTD, at Fort Huachuca. And I was there for a few years until I got med-boarded out of the Army for my knees. When I was there, I got lots of hands-on experience in the procurement and testing of new equipment that the Army was looking at for the Intel sphere, And I actually got that position because of some of the previous experience I had at both the tactical and strategic levels, looking at new equipment when I was at some other units. So that's kind of the sum up of my military career. But then at that point, I got out of the army and I ended up transitioning over to the civilian side and became a dirty contractor for 18th Airborne Corps as a senior OSA analyst over there. When I was there, I did daily products pretty much every single day, as well as it would tend to be about week of work or so on open source intelligence reports or OSERs, and answering questions that General Donahue, the CG for 18th Airborne Corps at the time, had. Um, and when I was there, one of the things I got to do was, see lots of new stuff that the Army was looking at for the Army Open Source Office, AOO, as far as tools that, OSINT collectors could use. Because it's one of the things that is, starting to become a glaring need for the Army. And throughout my time there, I spent most of my days, telling companies that they were doing stuff wrong and hey, this is what you really have to do. And, one day after work, leaving the dungeon, I got a call from Christian saying, "Hey, man, this is, what's your thought process on what the current environment looks like for tools that are out there?" And myself and Christian and Stefano all had the same thought process in regards of where the situation was and how it could move forward. Um, and I believe it went our conversation ended up going something along the lines of, do you want to get out of the ace? And I I was very happy to do that. So I ended up coming on board with Artorias, and we've been building ever since. And I'm proud to say that we are the cutting edge of what a true tool for a collector should look like, and a true force multiplier, uh, more than anything out there right now. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and I'm Christian Montessori. I mean, I guess they've touched on who I am kind of in the call. I mean, the intros that they've done, but a little bit about me. I have just under a decade of private intelligence experience working contracts here and there, mostly for Eastern European countries like Moldova, Ukraine, and some counter resistance movements in Belarus as well, trying to go up against the Lukashenko's government. Beyond that, I ran privatized psychological operations for Ukraine's Stratcom for a couple of years. Under that, we were the only. I ran a team of about 10 analysts, and we were the only people on Earth that knew the true scale of Russian casualties within Ukraine. That was all publicized on the famous spook telegram, if you're familiar with the early years of the Ukraine war and the social media aspects that go into that. Um, we were selling we were selling that data to everybody. I mean, DoD, CIA, DIA, um, the Ukrainians, MI6, the UK, pretty much every single person that wanted to know what the true scale of Russian casualties had to go through us. We're the only people on Earth that were geolocating every single body in that entire country and then linking it back to the individuals that were deceased. I met Stefano and Shane through a couple back channel um, OSINT chats, as well as hosting spaces formally on Twitter, where we all kind of became friends and shared intel where we could on stuff that wasn't too classified, and being able to actually work together in a way where both the privatized intelligence sphere and what would be, I guess, on the governmental side, kind of more meshed together. Anybody that's listening to this that's worked in intelligence, you realize no matter what organization you're in, I mean, you could be working in the DIA and trying to get information from the NGA, and like it is a process to share intelligence. And leading up to the war, a lot of us analysts kind of spread around the world all realized that, and we all kind of had similar patterns of, well, let's work together and make all of our lives easier. Um, and that's exactly what we did. And when I met Stefano on that train, I mean, he was talking about programs that are um, pretty restrictive, such as like Data Miner Pulse, for example, or First Alert, any of those platforms that are for governments only that the private side of Intel just simply don't have. And I mean, that's the entire embodiment of why we launched SITREP on the App Store and Android. Play Stores is to give people a what was a DoD locked product for the everyman. Because again, I come from the privatized sector. I'm working on tools that are even worse than what the DoD has. And what the DoD has is the quote unquote state of the art, but it's worse than what everybody imagines it to be. Anybody that's worked Intel will realize that as soon as you go in that it's not Spy Kids. Like it is, you're using platforms that look like they were developed on Gen 1 Microsoft in 2004. And that's what you have to work with. And as a collector, especially if you're in Shane's experience or Stefano's experience, it's bad. I mean, we're talking about programs that in 2024 were using keyword-based searches and giving people stuff that they're following the Lebanon crisis in Israel, for example. Last year, you're getting alerts for like places like Lebanon, New Hampshire, which is a real place, shares the same name, but has nothing to do with the conflict. And it's still sending those alerts to those collectors and completely wasting their time and taking their eyes off of what the actual task at hand is. Um, when I started this all, it was kind of with the thought that I'm basically going to dethrone this data alerting industry because there isn't the so what that is expected of other companies. If you follow any other startup in the world, I mean, if you even ran a company yourself and you're trying to seek investors or even clients, there's always the question of like, what is the so what? Like, what is making you a differentiator? And for all of these data companies, they're pretty much all copy and paste, whether it's Crisis 24, whether it's Data Miner, or I mean, hell, even Palantir to some extent. Like they're all pretty much identical. They're copy and paste of themselves. With us, what we've done is we've given the populist sitrep, which is now used in the hands of Fortune 100 companies. It's used in the hands of some of the best hedge fund managers on earth. It's used by some of the largest airlines and state-sponsored companies that exist on this planet. Like we're talking trillion-dollar companies here using a $10 platform developed by us in less than a year, outpacing the likes of state-of-the-art intelligence applications that once were on the market before us. When we launched SitRep, the whole idea was how can we democratize intelligence? How can we give every analyst on earth access to a tool that's state of the art and operates on a level that exceeds what the DoD is currently giving both enlisted officers as well as contractors. And Stefano and Shane will be the first people to say that the $10 app that we've launched far exceeds anything that is available to those groups currently. And on the private sector, which I'll move over to with Shane here in the next few minutes, but at least from an overview of that is also next level and just cannot be touched. I mean, we're talking about automated TTPs and SOPs being activated when a threat happens within 50 meters of whatever building like that they control as an asset. We're talking about tying in maritime and flight data directly into our platform for private clients. So if you're a cruise line, for example, you can see all of your boats on maps. And as soon as it comes within range of a specific threat, it actually gives you your TTPs and your SOPs verbatim how you have them listed. So there's no human conundrum of holy shit, there potentially might be pirates off the Somali coast that's going to take over my cargo ship. It's there are Somali pirates that we've been able to detect, and this is how you're going to. This is based on what we've discussed with your security team, how it's going to operate. And we are the only people on Earth, to our knowledge, at least on the public side of things, that is doing things as robust and as fast as we're doing them. I guess I'll pass the stage back to you, Stefano, now that we've gone through intros, so we can kind of touch base on some of the questions and technical stuff.
No, I think, Christian, you laid it out perfectly. And I think one of the things that people need to understand when you're doing intelligence, right? And I mean, Shane and I have been this in the government side, you know, uh, um, when a crisis is going to happen, right? Generally, a lot of the information you get is from a multitude of sources, right? And in government, we all understand that they're classified programs and they have ways and sources and methods. And that's the key thing, right? What makes something classified is the sources and methods it was achieved. It could be a super expensive satellite with amazing capabilities, or a drone, or SIGINT communications intercepts, or human intelligence placed in one way or another that take years to develop and do. But there's another thing that is ample as well, and that's open source intelligence. It's just publicly available to anybody. It's just the proper tools to collect it. And especially once a crisis happens and a war happens, we all say, we all go to open source. We all go to social media. It could be X, it could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be Telegram, it could be messaging groups. We all shift over because that's where you're going to get the fastest amount of information. And then it's important to critically analyze it to get an understanding of what's going on, because a lot of these other more classified systems, it takes time to collect, analyze, and divulge. But once you're in open source, it's right there for the world to see. And that's the gap that we want to prioritize and expand on to be the most successful. And we are the most successful, and we've really revolutionized it in a multitude of areas. SITREP is just one of the aspects, one of the programs that we have offering among a myriad of others that we have there. But let me go a little bit on the with Shane as well from the technology side. But I think what people need to understand is, because these are the questions that we get, right? How do we know SITREP is reliable? Where does it collect from, and et cetera? And let me talk from my department. As the chief intelligence officer, how I like to say to people, I'm the human side of the company. I have a team of analysts, great analysts under Artorias, a key company component of ours, and we, as a team of analysts with experience also as well in military intelligence, um, go through and analyze the sources and ensure that where the information is collecting from and the information is disseminated meets intelligence trade crafts and ensures that it is excels in giving you not only the information that happens, but more importantly, the so what. That's something I've always said. This is what matters, is the so what. And if you're a user of SITREP, you see that that's something in our analysis that really hits in why this information matters, and in the broader historical context that we also provide, why this is something that is newsworthy that you should be aware of, depending on whatever country or topic you are focused on. But that is what we do. We ensure that the sources it's collecting from is valid and the information is produced is valid, and more importantly, that the sources of information has a reliability sense, or it is understand that if it might has a bias or not. Because in intelligence, in an open source intelligence, there's a myriad of different factors that you need to analyze, not just where or what the information is. Is it coming from a state news media? And you can't just automatically always dismiss state news media. You need to ensure that the technology team understands, hey, this is a state news program and it's coming from this, so ensure that the information goes there. And that's something that our competitors and other companies don't do. They just, here it is, have at it. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, Christian, it's a fire hose. And you just get drowned in information, and that paralyzes you from being able to make decisions, because in the end of the day, that's what matters. But, for SITREP, Shane, I mean, this is something that we had a long, I think people need to understand, it was a long project of ours. We understood the gap. But with SITREP and all the other programs that we have, please go into the background from your technology side, your engineers, the phenomenal team that they are, how it was built, what it delivers, and how it's revolutionizing open source intelligence.
There's a lot to unwrap there. I think one thing that kind of makes me laugh is we're not trying to just be faster than AP News. We're trying to be faster than OSINT accounts. And that's really what differentiates us from the likes of Data Miner. They brag about being 5 hours faster than AP. Okay, cool. We were, 30 minutes faster than, the first OSINT account that, realized it and caught it and made a post on it. So at the end of the day, the team of Intel professionals that we have did an amazing job of, finding those sources, those firsthand direct sources to actually aggregate into what I call our data lakes. And what my engineers do is they go through and they compile all this information in a way that is easily accessible as individual data sets, and from there we delve out essentially the 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 impact level criteria based off the country, which is dynamic. It's not something that's static. As we saw it in the the recent escalations and war between Israel and Iran, um, what the first stages would be high alerts ended up shifting towards medium alerts because it became a common occurrence. It's not looking at everything individually, it's looking at it contextually as a whole because of the way that our team was able to develop it. And that's one of the biggest things that really stands out about us is we take the full scope of the information sphere to compile the report. It's not just a one of thing. And that's one of the biggest issues I had when I was a collector was I'd be on my system. I'd have two screens, right? One screen I'd have, I'd have first alert and or data miner, right? Maybe another tool. Then my other screen, I'd have my manage attribution account, and I'd be looking at social media. And one of the issues I'd run into all the time was I was looking at, let's say, first alert, and I'd get maybe three reports saying two missiles launched or a missile launched. Now I have to figure out, is that the same report three times, or is that three different entities reporting a total of six missiles? And that's one of the biggest issues that collectors were having, at least in my experience, was issues in regards to circular reporting and the context around it, because they didn't provide context. What we do is we have a full scope in regards to the event that's occurring, as well as, fail safes and checks and balances to ensure circular reporting doesn't make it into the app. So we really try to make sure that the information that the end user gets is the highest quality information available, and that it, actually provides the end user with information that's actionable and not confusing, because that's one of the biggest issues that we saw. Um, and then, kind of moving from that, that's the groundwork for everything, is the overall contextual understanding of each individual system. We didn't just, one size fits all for all 180 plus countries. And that's one thing that I don't think many people realize. Every single country has its own bespoke data set and its own bespoke impact levels, dependent on the country and, the level of which the situation is. When we get into the APC side of the house, the Artorias private client side, we'll dive into some of those, differentiating factors and some of the other stuff we do there. But yet, I guess there's just so much to talk about with SITREP, that is kind of hard to, find a spot and go from there. What do you have, Stefano? What do you think the users would, want to know from the tech side?
One of the things that I think is, Shane, that you're alluding to, and I think this is an important thing that I would say quickly, is that let's say you're a company and you're looking for what SitRep or what Artorias provides, and a myriad of other topics and other products that we have. And generally, how they would do it, let's say without us, they would need one company to hire that does scraping, in other words, collecting the information. They would probably need another one that gives them the information, and then a third one that gives them the analysis. We have synthesized that all in one. We have far superior scraping capabilities and collection capabilities. We have phenomenal delivery of information, and more importantly, the analysis of that information. We're
Yeah.
all in one. And what you alluded to, Shane, I think is Israel, Iran. Something else I tell people is, if let's say you're an American citizen and you want to travel to Trinidad and Tobago, or you have business in Ecuador, by having Artorias, you're basically in a situation where you're getting information from those countries as if you live there,
Yeah.
far ahead than anywhere else, far ahead without even having to do any research. It is delivered to you immediately in one platform, as if you're living there, faster than anywhere else. We
Yeah.
have, I mean, Shane, for example, let's talk about languages. We have translations of Fulani that perfectly translated to English about events that happen in West Africa.
Yep. And how, not even that, there's just people don't even, realize how many different languages will come out of a country when it comes to reporting. And, we'll have maybe three or four different reports talking about the same thing in different languages, but we're able to contextually translate each one of those things and pull out the key elements and produce one concise report. We're not producing three different reports from three different points of view. We're getting all aspects of it and giving it to the end user in a way that makes sense, in English, which is something that is honestly really hard to do when it comes to AI. And one thing that I always like to joke about is, AI is great, LLMs are great, all that stuff's fun, but at the end of the day, it's incredibly hard to get an AI to be consistent. It's incredibly hard. And not only do we get it to do it every single day for one country, we get it to do it every single day, every single hour, every single minute for 180 different countries. Just to put into context, in the let's see, In the last 4 months, we've sent out over 6.5 million notifications to individuals. Think about that number, 6.5 million. That's how many, that's how much news is coming through and how many people are actually looking at so many different parts of the world. And it's not just the big parts of the world. It's not just, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine or what's going on with Israel and Iran. It's the smaller countries also. It's the situations amongst African nations. It's the coups. It's the crime in Latin America and South America. And one of the things that I quickly, fell in love with the app when I first saw the initial version on test flight and was using it with the first five or so countries. Um, well, I think one of the first countries in that first batch of 5 or 10 was Honduras, and there was a report about a U.S. Army helicopter being down in Honduras, and I was like, "What?" And I looked it up, and it was 100% factual, and it happened literally minutes before that report came through. I had to do some digging to find it, took all my OSINT skills, but it was there. And that's kind of one of the things that I find is slightly comical is lots of the time the reports that we're sending out are so hard to discover that people tend to, have issues finding them. So they do have concerns about the credibility of the report because, hey, where's this from? I can't find it, which is why we added the claimed by portion to give that little bit of extra context in there for the end user in regards of, did it come from a state media account? Did it come from a social media account? Did it come from a news account? Where did it exactly come from? So they could backtrace it and find it themselves. Um, so that's just another little piece of it. There's so many things that we're doing on the tech side, um, such as, geolocation. We recently added geolocation into the app. That's something that, if you look at First Alert or anyone else, they're just going to point out the city and that's it. Oh, this is the city mentioned in it because a keyword, once again, that big keyword stomp, that they depend on. We don't do that. We take the full context of the information. I was amazed by the fidelity of the information that I had when everything was going on between Israel and Iran. There was reports of ADA between two different cities, and what the AI actually did was it looked at those two individual reports, where they were coming from, and determined essentially based off doctrine where that ADA platform could be. And then the crazy part of it is we looked at the imagery because we were able to pull imagery, and we did validate that there was in fact a gun battery there. So it's impressive just the lengths that the AI is able to go in regards of using context and using knowledge to determine what would take an analyst at least 5+ minutes, and that's a skilled analyst. Like I was in a cab, I was in combat aviation brigade for a few years, like I said in the beginning of the call. And, if there's a fallen angel or something along those lines, it takes time to figure out the information behind the report. It takes about 5 minutes. That's why you have a 5-minute drill. We could do it in seconds. It doesn't take minutes, it takes seconds. And that's what really, what amazes me. And that's just on the direct consumer side for SITREP.
So actually, before we expand on the other capabilities that we have, Christian, I do want to highlight a recent success story that SITREP has related to Israel and Iran and a critical decision made that provide very important for the safety and lives of thousands of people. Christian, can you elaborate on the Israel-Iran and the Qatar Airways and how SITREP proved critical in making a very important decision for that company?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of a larger and kind of off the cuff success story. To preface this, we have right now on SitRep itself, we have over 21,000 users that actively log in and check it, which is massive. The way we architect, like architecturally made up like the login process for SitRep was you can type anything into a name bar and you can put any email in, and there's no password saved. It's literally just every magic link possible. So go in, you make an account, put whatever name you want. Doesn't have to be real. It can be whatever you want to put it. Whatever email you want, it sends a code. You put the code in, you're logged in. So there's a lot of logins that we have that are just like Proton mails or other various like private email distros where people can just put in whatever falsified information they want so they can stay anonymous. So we have a lot of people using the app that we otherwise wouldn't know are using the app, which is good and bad. This is one of those situations where it was really good. Um, for the case of the Iran strikes that the U.S. carried out, we were first squawk on that, I will comfortably say, compared to most other, at least compared to news, definitely first squawk. Definitely first squawk in regards to our assessments on those strikes actually going to occur um, against Iran, and people took notice. So there's a lot of people that use our app again that are very private and they hide their information. And by all means, whoop-de-doo, that's how the world works. We're comfortable with that. The significance behind SITREP existing in the public sphere, though, for example, the company that we're in question is Qatar Airways, right? They have assets in the area, and there was grave conversation within the intelligence community that if the United States was to launch an attack against Iran, that Iran would retaliate against U.S. assets in the region, in this case, affecting Qatar. That was number one or number two in terms of like threat assessment for a U.S. base in the region. And there was also a lot of back channeling, and everybody knows this now, but at the time there was a lot of back channeling that if the US was going to see a strike, it would happen in Qatar. Since our platform synthesizes millions of data points every minute and can actually give a full contextualization of the situation, the one person working as an intelligence manager for Qatar Airways was able to send a SITREP notification that he got, share it across his entire department, and have the heads of the department tell the C-suite of Qatar Airways, hey, we need to move assets out now. And that one SITREP notification completely dramatically changed this multi-billion-dollar aviation company's operations for the rest of the day based on preliminary information that they would have otherwise taken hours to have figured out and potentially put thousands of lives at risk in the process. But since they got that information so quickly through us, they were able to make these decision points so quickly. And like again, that's our $10 app. Like as Shane and Stefano and myself will attest, like the stuff that we do make for privatized clients, and we are very selective. Like there's an application process. We vet you thoroughly. This isn't just off the shelf. You have the money, we give it to you. It's just not how our business model works. We're very private on how we operate in terms of giving people the product. And that's how we want to maintain it because to the companies that we're willing to partner with, we want to partner with them and give them an edge that no one else has. Everybody can have SITREP, and it's unequivocally a state-of-the-art intelligence product that outpaces everything else on the market, and it's $10. We've done our due diligence. We've done our share of giving people that access. And for Qatar Airways, for example, that is a $10 subscription that that person had on SITREP, and that one subscription saved tens of millions of dollars and countless lives by them moving assets out before everybody else. So, and again, that all leads in to the call of the question of like, all right, like what was Artorias founded on? And as Stefano said, like it's founded on the principles of being the best and like not having an archaic decision-making process tool that costs $40,000 per seat. It's bloatedly expensive. It's not updated ever. And it's terrible to use if you're a collector like Shane. Like we're trying to utilize software and technology to change lives from a even a free subscription on SITREP is outpaces most intelligence products, I would comfortably say, to like our higher end stuff.
And also, just to clarify, the only reason that we know that it did have such a big impact with Qatar Airways is because they reached out to us wanting to know more about what we offer on the private client side because of just how good the entry level SITREP app was. And that's something that, we're really proud of. A $10 app did so much better than everything else out there, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. And, everything else that the APC has to offer, the Artorias private client has to offer is, so much deeper than that.
So let's expand on that, Shane, if we can, because one of the things I remember we were talking about, I think what people need to understand, SITREP, gives you alerts for over 180 countries. You click on a country and it gives you all the alerts. And when you see the high, medium, low, that's the impact level. And as you alluded to earlier, Shane, it's high, medium, low for that country. One country has a different standard than others, and it's not just a basic across the board. It's very tailored to each individual one. You can also look by topics. There's over 500 topics. I, for my all source news, heavily rely on the crime. Actually, no, the cartel. There's one we have specifically called cartels that literally gives you all information about criminal activities around the world from a organized crime cartel, major drug busts, etc. And I heavily leverage it for mine. I can tell you right now, everybody, SitRep has given me saved me a lot of time in tracking information. And sometimes in Mexico alerts, I find out first via SitRep than other even the sources that I've tracked. And I've been doing this almost 5 years now. But to the APC side, one of the perfect examples, I know we even before SitRep, we had data streams for a client that was related to medical news and pharmaceutical news in the Middle East. And I know we talked about how it would take a team of analysts a week to generate a report that it was doing daily in the seconds and sending it there. And that's part of our private client side. So Shane, please kind of lay out all the different programs that we have and how it can enable individuals and corporations and governments stay a step ahead.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to go over this is just, start with the baseline of what everything's built on for the private client side, and that's Alithia. And what Alithia is essentially a real-time monitoring tool that we have that looks for whatever the client is, focused on, whether that be safety issues, whether that be threats to a location, whether that be um, general understanding of a situation, whether that be, logistical concerns, you name it. That's where it's housed, and that's where you get your real-time updates. And then from that, you also get your daily, your weekly, and also your monthly updates, which provide contextually based off the information that is reported in Alithia, what is going on, what is the high level overview. The way that I kind of like to explain it is the instant updates that you get via Alithia are they're specifically focused for that client. Everything from what they're looking for, so like your EEIs if you're doing collection, all the way to the impact levels and what's going to actually impact the client overall. And one of the things that's built into that, one of our more advanced capabilities is Nemesis. There we have lots of back end triggers and data sets that look at what's important to the client and where is the decision maker uh, threshold level. And from that, what it does, if an Alethea report meets that requirement, it triggers a Nemesis report. And Nemesis is awesome. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of, developing thus far with Artorias. And what it is it's a real-time decision-making tool. But we're doing all the work for you. Generally, if you come from a background and having to make decisions, if you're a decision maker, like let's say you're in charge of a GSOC or something along those lines, you know that it takes time to get the information, first of all. Second of all, assess the situation. Third of all, determine courses of action. And then fourth of all, distribute and action those. Nemesis, what it does is it does all that instantaneously for you within a matter of seconds. So it makes your life a whole lot easier. And what's awesome about it is it uses not only historical information, current information, and the actual event and threat information, but also uses your business information in regards of, what you're looking at, what are your priorities, but also what are your own TTPs and your own SOPs. Who do you get involved for certain situations? How do you react to certain situations? We have all that built into it because we do have a very bespoke product. We speak with you and figure out how you work because we want it to do the work for you to make your life a lot easier. It's a manpower multiplier. What would take a small GSOC hours to do, even a good sized GSOC hours to do, we can do in seconds. And what that does it enables you to make those timely decisions when seconds matter. It's really the apex of information in keeping your team ahead of the curve, and determining what to do based off a threat, whether that be, um, you know, course of action one, two, or three. And what's awesome about those is each one of those courses of action not only have your own SOPs and TTPs embedded in them in their foundation, but they also have the full context of the situation, and they also understand the risk level associated, and also the statistical probability of success based off that. So it gives you essentially, hey, this is your best COA, your COA one, this is your second best COA, COA two, and this is your third best COA three. And each one of those have assigned risk levels and success levels. So that's kind of Alithia Nemesis. Uh, Before I dive into the rest, is there anything in particular that you think, everyone would like to know about those?
No, I think one of the perfect example chain is, and I think you highlighted because I think a lot of people might think from a security perspective, but there's a lot more that we offer. We do one of the things that we had for Lithia is we did a perfect demonstration and capabilities is we were collecting, for example, for a major PR firm for a contract that they had about any electric battery that would explode around the world. And the thought process was they identified that they were wasting countless man hours and money trying just to collect that information before they could respond. And we did it in a matter of seconds, and they could get the reports instantaneously would happen, as well as a daily roll up. And
Yeah,
this goes to the strength of it. Like we have things related to climate, and in the sense of not only just from the concerns of climate change and the climate crisis, but we also have about developments, both in renewable energies around the world, both from a climate perspective and an economic perspective. And I think, Shane, you really laid out very broadly and very succinctly how all these different case examples can be leveraged. And from SetRep to all the other programs we have, it has a multitude of services. And what's great about it, we can tailor it specifically to your needs and your requirements to make you much more efficient and much more informed.
exactly. And one of the things I love to say to the people that we work with, our clients, is it's not a one size fits all. It's hey, we're tailoring it for you to make sure it's perfect. It's one of those things as it starts off really, really good, better than everyone else, but it will continue to advance and it will end up blowing you out of your socks at some point or another, I guarantee you. Um, and I think that's what I'm really proud of is, when I first came on board, the one thing that I wanted to do was make a tool that I would love to use. Someone that was a collector, someone that was in that person's shoes. What is something that I would enjoy using? And I could tell you right now that there's OSINT collectors for the Army that are using it on a daily basis before they come into work because they know that it's able to, catch them up on everything that happened since they left the ACE. So that way they can dive into it and start the day off strong. Um, it's really changing the way that everyone is looking at information, whether it be on the SITREP side or the APC side. And it's really just a testament to how much work went into it, both on the Intel side and the dev side. It was truly a massive team effort. And one of the other things that we do, I think the next good thing to kind of dive into from that is the predictive analysis side. Um, we essentially have a tool called Pythia. And what Pythia does is it takes all those Alithia reports, takes all those daily reports, monthly reports, weekly reports, as well as historical information, context, current events. Um, it wraps all that up and ends up producing an assessment for what's going to happen down the road based off what the client wants. If the client wants to know hey, what's going to happen in the next 24, 48, 72 hours, we could set it up like that. If they want to know, hey, what's going to happen in the next 1 week, 1 month, and 6 months, we could do that. And, one of the biggest things about that, as anyone who's in the intelligence sphere will know, is not only is, probability a factor when you're making an assessment, but so is your confidence level. And it takes both those into account when it produces these assessments. Um, and one of the things that I noticed, we were able to test this really, really well when everything happened with Syria at the end of last year. Um, and I remember you, Stefano, sending out messages um, pretty much every single day saying another Pythia win because it was catching stuff days ahead, stuff that I wouldn't have thought of as an intelligence analyst happening. And it was incredibly impressive. And, being someone that's, sat in the strategic side of the house at a corps and at a division, at the battalion and at brigade level, I can confidently say that, the assessments coming out of Pythia are better than 95% of assessments that are handwritten by an ace. It's, it's incredibly impressive. The only reason I won't say 100% is because every once in a while in the army, you might have your dream team, and it's a whole bunch of dudes that know exactly what they're talking about, but 90% of the time, that's not the case. But at the end of the day, we're able to produce a report that's better than pretty much everything out there, even handmade, and produce it instantaneously. We're not having to spend all day long or all week long working on one assessment that we're going to push out for a week. It's something that is happening instantaneously.
And one area I like to focus on is the sentiment analysis that we offer. Because one of the things I noticed is when doing research is a lot of corporations and company, when they're looking for sentiment analysis, they have to go to one company for the scraper, for the collection of data, and then a separate one for the sentiment analysis piece and maybe being able to analyze it. And I think that's archaic, inefficient, and more importantly, costly. Can you kind of explain that as well, and how we are leagues ahead to anybody out there that might be offering these services?
Yeah, absolutely. Bottom line up front, I mean, that is the name of the podcast. We're 100 times better than anyone else out there when it comes to sentiment analysis. Um, as someone who was an OSINT collector before, one of the hardest things to do is sentiment analysis because it takes a lot of time. It will take you all day long to get a base of maybe a few hundred people. And then you have to, figure out what the actual scope is based off that. Um, and it's really, really hard to do. And I tried leveraging tools in the past to do this. Specifically when I was at 18th Airborne Corps, tried using a variety of tools, but everything failed. And the reason why it failed is how they were doing it. Right now, the way that everyone is doing sentiment analysis is they're looking at words. They're not looking at the context behind those words and what's going on. So if they see war mentioned in a post, or attack mentioned in a post, or you know, peace mentioned in a post, those are split up into groups. Those groups are either good or bad, far left or far right. But the truth and reality is it's not that simple. And that's why everything is failing in sentiment analysis right now. Um, you, I literally, when I was a collector, tried to use these tools to do this thing, but it wouldn't work because what I was looking at as a person on, looking at Telegram, looking at X, looking at VK, looking at all these things, it was not matching up at all with what these other tools were reporting. And it astounded me. It didn't make any sense. And I started diving into it more. And I started noticing that what it was doing was it was looking at those specific words and it was lumping them up into a good side and a bad side, engaging the sentiment off that. We do it completely differently. We scrape everything out there in regards to what you're looking for in regards of sentiment analysis or the event that is occurring. We scrape everything. And from that, we give information based off the full context and scope of that information in the event. And
And
that,
sorry,
sorry.
if I may, Shane, I think one of the key aspects that you're hitting on is if you are, we have our sentiment analysis that when it gives it to you, it tailors it by also critical events, either as a corporation, as an individual, as a government. And it's not as just simple, it's never going to be as simple as positive, neutral, negative, or good, neutral, bad.
Yeah.
The
The
important
truth is
aspect
hard.
is the so what.
Yeah, the truth is gray. What is the so what of it? And what is actually being said? We had a client in the past who was um what's the best way to put this? They were a consumer business and they were concerned about what the public sentiment was in regards to their services that they offered. They were a delivery service. And we were able to get a full scope sentiment analysis of what the public thought of them every single day, every single thing people said, and not only qualify it, but also quantify it in a way that made sense. And that's something no one else does. And I'd like to also, add in there some of the other clients that we've had when we're, looking at their sentiment analysis as a business. Um, One of the things we do is identify threats in the process, right? Are there any threats to the business or to the executives in the business? And, it's able to contextually determine what is actually a threat or what the threat is to. Is the threat to the business? Is the threat to the individual or the position? Or is it to the board? And what is the sentiment around that? Is 80% of, posts right now calling for a change of the board? Of those 80%, what are the common trends within that sentiment? Then the other 20%, what exactly is that? Where are these groups coming from? What is the actual information situation? And coming from someone that has a 35 Fox background, one of the things we do is PMECA scope, right? One of those eyes, information. What is the information? What is the social information? Who are the people saying it? And that's really, what separates us from everyone else in those regards.
And Christian, if I can ask you a question from a vision perspective, and I think this is something that I run into when we're talking it from the tech side. I think a lot of times what corporations fail to realize is when an LLM or an AI, when they're trying to do what it needs it to do or trying to get the information and maybe it's missing it, they view it in many ways as a tech problem. But I think in reality, this is kind of the strength of Artorias is the people behind it and the experience that we have. Not everything is a tech. It's the key people and personnel that you have and building a team that understands there is a tech portion, but there's also the understanding of the information. And that requires a strong team that doesn't just mean throwing more engineers at the problem, but actually having people, as Shane's background excellently shows, how to get the areas that you need more focus. And a lot of it is getting the right people that have decades of experience and actually doing analysis to deliver a superior product.
Yeah, so like the orchestra, I look at myself as kind of a conductor in like an orchestra, right? And like I actually made a Twitter thread about this, not self-promoting. I'm not, my Twitter is not something to follow. It's pretty bullshit. But I did make a thread about this, about like how the public perception around like AI companies is kind of shifting. At least for us, like when I started this company, it was okay. AI will be a secondary factor to the people that are actually involved. And if I'm going to do this as a company, I'm not going to do it by myself. I started this company alongside Drake, who does all of our like legal compliance. He's our COO at the end of the day. He's the vice president. He does all the boring shit no one else wants to do. The next person in line was Stefano. He was the one that actually introduced me to this world, like of intelligence products that the DoD have, and showing me like just how terrible they actually are as like a user interface. And then I brought Shane on, knowing his background when it came to actually procuring this equipment and like understanding the nuanced issues that go into it on a deeper level than just using it as a tool, but also like how can we make it better? Um, and then from that, that was kind of the founding team. And then we've added people that are are perfected in their own roles prior to coming to Artorias. And the people we hire are frustrated. Like those are the people that we want to hire. We want to hire somebody that's upset about the status quo of what their position was. For example, our analysts, they realized that they were going to be outpaced one day by an AI system, much to the same extent that ours was. Um, they felt super aimless. I mean, the people that are in our analysis pool are people much to the same extent as myself, Shane, and Stefano, realizing the tools in place are incredibly expensive and incredibly lackluster in their end products. And then our engineers, again, it comes from a place of love and passion for this vision of making the intelligence sphere better and bringing it up to up to the levels of like an Apple or up to the level of like brand recognition. I'll drop Formula One in here for talk's sake, like making the best possible product. Like that is what we're attempting to do. And it's not like for us, it's like innovation first, business second. Like that's how we operate this. Like Shane and I are up until 3 a.m. some days, just brainstorming random stuff that we can stuff inside this to make it a better product. And it's showing. I mean, we are leagues ahead of any of the competitors in this space. But to your point, Stefano, of asking me, like, it's the people involved. Yeah, it's like it's more crucial to be the people involved to actually have the problem eh, themselves to understand what goes into a solution, but more on top of the solution of what is next. Okay, you solved this problem. What is the nuanced thing you wish? Even when it comes to like the maritime data and the plane data, like I discussed previously, that's as simple as a problem as I run on one computer because I'm an aesthetics person and I can't stand when I go into somebody's office and they have 15 monitors. I bought an Apple Vision Pro headset with my own money just so I could not have to look at that in my space when I walk into my office. I am that nutty when it comes to like how things look and how they operate and how they feel, which is why we get so many compliments on how SitRep looks and how Artorias private client looks and how it interacts. Being said, like fixing this simple problem of I don't want to switch tabs from Flight Radar 24 to switch over to Twitter to see what the feed looks like. Like that small little micro aggression that I have is being solved by our system. So it just adds another layer of want. I think for this company to succeed, you have to have somebody as anal as me have people that have experienced the problem on a intimate level, such as Stefano, and have somebody that has a deep understanding of what currently exists in the marketplace and also an understanding of the current competition and how lack of effort they're putting in, which comes with Shane, and having the technical prowess of the rest of our C-suite. Charlie on our chief product officer is a phenomenal example of somebody that otherwise would not be working in an intelligence company if it wasn't for us. I mean, his background is designing products for some of the top Fortune 100 companies on earth. I mean, he has designed some of the most popular apps. He is a phenomenal designer, but having his touch in this makes SitRep more usable because at the end of the day, okay, we've solved all these problems. People want to use us on like a technical level. How I'm looking at it is we've solved the problem for today, but what is the problem for tomorrow? And the problem for tomorrow, at least in my eyes, and why design and aesthetics are so important to me, is because I want the people that go into these intelligence roles 2 years from now to not have lost sight of the problem that we solved, right? Like the people that are using SitRep and Artorias private client for their jobs today will forget about the problem we solved tomorrow. So how do I make an application that is otherwise pretty like competing with pretty archaic tools? How can I make it as beautiful and as seamless so that people that are going into it want to use the application? They look at it just as you look at your iPhone, for example, and you pick it up and you're like, wow, this is a beautiful piece of technology. Everything is so smooth and buttery, and it does exactly as it says on the box. Like that is what we're doing for the intelligence space as well. So kind of twofold answer there, but the people that we have and the problems that we have and what looks like tomorrow, the entire vision is pretty all encompassing. And I'll pass it over to Shane as well to answer this question because I'd like to hear his take on it from more of a technical aspect as opposed to just like a vision aspect.
Yeah, and I mean, I honestly, it lines up with exactly what Christian said. At the end of the day, the engineers that I have, we're not satisfied with what we have today. We're always driving for what's next. And to be a business, you have to do that. And that's what has, quite frankly, stopped the entire intelligence community from moving forward with tools in the past. It's the procurement system, it's how everything is set up. It's what is good enough. We don't want to be what's good enough. We want to be the best out there, not just today, but tomorrow. Because quite frankly, I believe we're at the point where we're not competing with anyone else. We're competing with ourselves. and how do we make ourselves better to be the best thing out there, not today, but in the next 10 years, every single day from here to then. We want to be the people coming up with the next new cool thing. And, that's what makes me proud to be part of Artorias and, to be able to lead the team that I have on my end.
No, and I would agree. Um, I think that the team is what makes it better. We are a very, I will say, if I may, I'm 33. What I'm the oldest one of the team. We're young and adaptable, and I think that's the thing. The adaptability is our strength. Our ability to change problems is our strength. The different perspectives and points of view and our backgrounds is different because we have people in our team that have, let's say, no military intelligence or intelligence background, but analyze the problem because they see it, they understand it, and they are great at translating it to other industries and other problem sets that maybe we wouldn't have been thinking because maybe we see everything as a nail, so we need a hammer. And that adaptability, that group thinking, is I think is our greatest strength. But
You know,
with that, go ahead, Shane.
I was just gonna say you said something there that kind of made me laugh a little bit also because some of our engineers have zero experience or had zero past in wanting to know what OSINT was. And by the time the app launched, they were sending me messages, "Oh, did you see what happened in Venezuela?" And it really goes to show just what all it brings to the table. And the team isn't just focused on, trying to make something good enough, but they've truly fallen in love with the product and just want to continue to make it better every day. And I'm just proud of them.
It is I'm very highly honored to be part of this team. And I want to take this opportunity both to Christian and Shane. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for laying out what Artorias, SITREP, our private client, and everything what we're doing. Because I think the key thing is here we're trying to be revolutionary in how AI integrates into the future. We know it is, but we're always going to be a step ahead, a league ahead, and that is our goal, and that's what we strive for. So, to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. This was probably my favorite episode of the Bottom Line Up Front, and I will see you next week.